what's up, my kid? Listen, what's up? Welcome to my fucking friendly abode. Let me just turn this way because I feel like it's a little more natural, you know what I mean? Or should I do it this way? Let me just see here which one looks kind of better. Because I'm kind of trying to figure out, I'm trying to just kind of get in the right fucking frame of mind here to make these videos because I'm a fucking influencer now and I'm trying to, you know what I mean, get on the fucking YouTube, on the .com, you know what I mean, with the old ass Jeeves used to be there and the Internet Explorer, the Mozilla Firefox. So it's like, you got to kind of just get in there and just, you know, shoot your shot, see what happens. We never know what's going to happen. So it's important to just get out there and just try your best with stuff. You know what I mean? Sometimes I slouch down like a fucking, like a fucking huddled penguin or something. But other times you got to be, you know, stand strong like fucking Superman. You know what I mean? And just get fucking after it and get based and cringe. Because there's a lot of times that actually call for you being based. But then there's other times that if you're a little bit cringe, it might behoove you a little bit. You know what I mean? So it's like, you're constantly kind of threading that needle, my kid. So it's like, for example, a time to be based, right? You're at a fucking relative's party. Say it's Christmas, all right? Right now it's like August. So Christmas is a long ways off. But it's going to come eventually. It always does. Unless you're a dearly departed and you don't make it to Christmas. In which case, my respects and prayers with you and yours. But assuming that you do make it and your stockings are filled to the chimney tops, and you don't get any coal, and you're having a good, you know, you come back from the midnight mass, and you maybe might have a couple, maybe you sipped a little bit too much of the wine with the priest, you know what I mean? He's not used to so many people, because not that many people go. A lot of people are, like myself, just cultural Catholics, you know what I mean? So it's like, you go to the mass, but you don't necessarily are used to it. So when he gives you the picture of the fucking wine, you know, you're just like, thanks, and you just drink it, you know what I mean? So that's actually happened to me and several of my close acquaintances over the years, and we've had to be escorted out of the premises, and, you know, I understand, like, the 501c3, you know, they kind of duck and weave and bob, you know, you gotta play the game a little bit. So anyway, once you're out of there, fast forward to the present moment where I mentioned Christmas time, you know what I mean? So it's like we're waiting for Christmas, and I was going to give the example of when to be based and when to be cringe, all right? Because that's very important information to know. Because a lot of times, it really does, like I said, behoove you to be based. And other times, you know, kind of play Mickey the Dunce and be cringe. And so a time to be based would be if you're at your fucking Grandmaster Nellie's Christmas party, and she's got the eggnog, and it might be a little spiked, it might not be, whatever the case may be, and you're drinking the eggnog, and some guy comes in, and he starts talking about, you know, he's just demographic pilled, he's just talking about all this, that, and the other. You know, you want to maybe take him aside and be like, hey, I'm actually pretty based on a lot of these topics, you know what I mean? Like, we can get into some of these things. I don't want to talk too explicitly because I'm on the YouTube.com, but, like, you know what I mean. If you know, you know. Other times, say you're at that same party, and a really attractive woman comes in, and she's dressed to the nines, and it's your cousin's new girlfriend, you know what I mean? So she's totally available. They probably brought her there just to meet you, or maybe another eligible bachelor, you know what I mean? So it's like, you're introduced, and you just, you know, you're like, when you're talking to beautiful women, there's a sense where it's like, you really got to pay attention, but at the same time, you got to stay flow state. You know what I mean? Because once you start thinking, and once those wheels start turning, it's kind of like women and like their pheromones and the skin and the hair on their skin or something just sticks up, and all of a sudden they're onto you. Because what women really like, and let me break this down very simply, is they love spontaneity and natural charisma, and just being in a flow state. You know, that's why I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I do very well with women because I'm pure flow state. As you can tell, I don't even really know what I'm talking about. I just wanted to make a video. I get on the YouTube and I click go, and where we go, we go. Where we go, we go one all. You know what I mean? So talk about based. That would be an example of based. You remember the QAnon a few years ago coming out of the sewer, the Hillary Clinton. That's an example of what at the time I thought was based, but as we see now, it's actually quite cringe. However, all those points being aside, say you bring in Susie Hobknocker, or whatever her name is, you know what I mean? And you're talking to her, and you're just getting that sense that, okay, this is a girl who's probably not as based as I am. You know, she's a sweet girl, she comes from a good family, she's got a good relationship with her father, but there's something about her where she's very kind of cookie cutter, you know what I mean? She's like a Disney princess type girl, which is great. I love those girls. I love all women, don't get me wrong. So anyway, you're talking to her though, and you know, it's like, okay, now this is the fine line here, because you got to stay in that flow, but you need to self-modulate a little bit. You know what I mean? Just a little bit, like a little dabble do you. So you get into the self-modulation, and before you know it, you can kind of like, you're not sacrificing yourself and your own views and what makes you you, but at the same time, you're just kind of harnessing a fucking part of you that otherwise you probably wouldn't present. It's not like the you. It's more of like a second layer or a third or a fourth or a fifth layer of you that you can access through your years of conditioning. You know, being in the public school systems and being out going to the baseball games, you learn different stuff, you know what I mean? So it's like you kind of just get this sense of when to just kind of channel that, you know what I mean? And so I would say that would constitute as cringe, you know what I mean? Because you're not quite yourself, which is the opposite of based. Of course, the inverse opposite reaction of based is cringe, as we know. And so it's a little bit cringe, but a lot of times, I don't mean to sound sexist, but a lot of times girls can be kind of cringe. Let's just call a spade. You know what I mean? Not all girls, obviously, and a lot of guys can be cringe. But generally, I find in my illustrious dating, you know, life and all that, a lot of times I find that women can be a little bit cringe. And so you just gotta kind of peel back the onions a little bit, get to that sort of silly cringe layer where flow state, we're just completely in the zone, but we're just dial it back to that cringe level 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't typically want to go above cringe level 4, I would say. Now, if the girl is like clearly like a cringe level 6 or 7, I would say you just kind of scaled the cringe to like 2.5 to 3 levels short of hers, because what we're trying to do is, okay, her cringe is at level 7. I'm going to start at cringe level 1, and we're going to try to chip away and bring her down to a happy medium. Now, a lot of times that doesn't work, but you got to hold frame. You know what I mean? You just got to hold that frame, and it's like, now some guys like to go above and beyond. Some guys will just have a different strategy, and they'll fucking see that a girl is cringe level 7 and be like, you know what? I'm going to fucking turn this thing to 11 right off the bat, and we're going to meet at a 9. You know what I mean? That's another strategy that you could do that actually works for people that I've seen. But it's not my style, you know what I mean? And for the average man, I would not recommend that. I would say my style, you start low and bring her down to, because when you bring her down, you're closer to that basehood, you know what I mean? You're closer to that natural foundation which we've crafted over the years. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to say about that. Don't take it so seriously, guys. Out there, have some fun dating. You know what I mean? It's fun. These girls are great. Enjoy your life, man. Don't get too wrapped up in all this, like, all the black pill and all this, you know, this, that, and the other. Like, you know, the world's a mirror, right? So it's like whatever you think, like, it's going to be reflected back to you. You know what I mean? I would say that that's pretty self-evident. A lot of guys dispute that claim. And, you know, we can talk about that in some other video. But right now, I just wanted to keep it, you know, pretty centered on the things that I talked about, whatever they were. And, you know, if you like this video, share, like, subscribe. Let's hear what you got to say. Fucking, if you disagree with me, like, let's have a debate. Let's talk about it. I want to hear from you in the comments. Do you think you should cringe max with the women, or do you think you should, you know, kind of stay at a more based level? You know what I mean? So that's kind of the question that we're dealing with here today.